Welcome back. We are continuing to track the U.S. and Israel as they continue to hit targets in Iran, aiming to dismantle their infrastructure. We are hearing that they've struck over 7,800 targets so far, performed over 8,000 combat flights, and damaged or destroyed over 120 Iranian vessels. Retired Marine Intelligence Officer, National Security Analyst, and the host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kempfer, here with us tonight. Hal, some news today about an F-35 fighter jet. I'm reading some reporting here. There was an emergency landing with a U.S. F-35 fighter jet. It was flying a combat mission over Iran, and then it had to make an emergency landing. The pilot, according to the U.S. military, is in stable condition. CNN says that the jet was believed to be hit by Iranian fire. If that's the case, would this be the first time that a U.S. fighter jet was hit in the sky amid this war?
As far as I can tell, it's the very first time. It hasn't happened. In fact, I have been really surprised that we haven't had more aviation mishaps or actually U.S. aircraft or for that matter, Israeli aircraft come under fire. Early into this thing, we jointly declared air superiority over most of Iran. And then that quickly matriculated into the term air dominance, which means that we dominate the airspace. But it's not the same thing as air supremacy, which means basically we can fly anywhere we want uncontested. And you saw today what appears to be that an F-35, a stealth fighter, okay, with all the stealth systems and all the stealth stuff that's available to it, was presumably targeted and sustained damage. And it sounds like the pilot was injured as well. So it just kind of, it's a cautionary tale. And by the way, if we can go for another few weeks and we don't have another thing like this, that will be just amazing in the annals of warfare. But it's a dangerous business, and these things do happen.
A question coming in from Mark in Grand Junction saying, what is the extent of the damage taken by U.S. bases, infrastructure, planes, ships, etc.? How many U.S. assets has Iran hit? And Hal, I don't expect you to have any precise numbers. With time, we will presumably learn a little bit more about the scope of damage that has been done. But this question from Mark made me think about the initial strike that killed a number of service members in Kuwait. Are there still questions looming about how that played out?
Well, that's going to be investigated fully. And this is an excellent question because it deals with bomb damage or battle damage assessment. What have the bad guys inflicted upon us? What casualties have we sustained? What damage have we sustained to weapons, armaments, systems, headquarters, whatever it is? Obviously, we have taken some losses. There was we took a casualty. Someone was, a service member was killed in Saudi Arabia. Still don't know exactly what happens there. It's the fact it was in Saudi Arabia kind of got my attention. And then, of course, we had that tragic thing with the Theater Sustainment Tactical Operations Center in Kuwait. But generally speaking, we've had a lot of people injured. I think it's getting close to 200 now overall. But generally speaking, we haven't sustained a number of people killed. And it doesn't sound like a lot of those were injured. Were serious injuries, but we're very careful, especially about anything with traumatic brain injury potential. We look at that much closer. So I think we're doing pretty good. I know we've lost some radar systems, and I'm sure we've lost some other things too. I haven't heard about major end items being taken out on these attacks on the bases. And we have a lot of air defense around the bases. And the other thing is the bases are kind of built for this. I mean, if you look at the hangars and stuff, these are not the hangars you're going to see here in the U.S. These are usually concrete revetment things that are designed to resist some sort of strike.
A live look at the White House, the time in D.C., 10 o'clock on the nose. Today, President Trump was asked about the possibility of U.S. ground troops being deployed to Iran. And he said, no, I'm not putting troops anywhere. And then he said he could deploy military forces wherever he wanted, but said he'd also not tell reporters about his plans. So I could sum this up, Hal, tell me if I'm correct. Trump is still keeping his options open, isn't he?
That's about the best way to describe it. He hasn't taken off the idea of putting, and actually in what he said, it could be completely true. He has not made a decision to commit U.S. troops on the ground, no boots on the ground. So that could be 100% true. And the other part is, but he could change his mind and circumstances may dictate to do that. Now, what would that possibly look like? Well, one thing is, of course, the story, or at least as we understand it, the Iranians have enriched uranium somewhere stored in Iran. Somewhere we're going to want to send somebody in there, whether it's boots on the ground or inspectors on the ground, depending on what this thing turns out to be, but probably boots on the ground and go in there and secure that enriched uranium and get it out of there. So that's a possible employment. Now, that would be deep within Iran. So if it was a raid, it would be a raid involving a lot of distance, a lot of logistics, a lot of capabilities, and with that, a lot of risk. So that's a possibility. Another thing that's been looked at very close with the Strait of Hormuz is the number of islands that you have around the Strait of Hormuz. And the idea is that maybe the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit could go in there and possibly take one or two of those islands. And I'm going to throw out something I haven't heard anybody talk about yet, but 3 of those islands are actually claimed as sovereign territory by the UAE. That has been a dispute that goes back to the Shah's time in the early 70s. They claim they own those islands. And the UAE just had its gas facilities targeted by Iran. And you're getting the impression that the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council countries, might be more willing. In fact, Saudi Arabia was pretty clear that they might be more willing to get involved in this. I could see a situation where maybe the Marine Corps goes in, basically takes an island, and then we do a handoff to a GCC country to hold the island while we move on and get ready to attack another island. That's a very, very distinct possibility. That just all depends on how long this thing goes, though.
Talking about the Strait of Hormuz, Joshua has this question. Why wasn't the strait secured in the beginning of the conflict? Or perhaps, Hal, why wasn't some effort taken to secure it before the war broke out?
We could do something like that. There really is no way to secure the strait. It is a huge area, and and Iran is where it is. It's on islands. It's across most of the strait, pretty much the entire strait, I should say. And if you look there, you see the geography. There is no physical way to secure the strait. Even if we were to put a bunch of U.S. Navy vessels, all we would have been doing is putting them in harm's way for dubious gain. It really wouldn't have done anything for us. The big thing now that you're saying, and you heard it when we were talking about some of the things like 120 or maybe 150 ships have been taken out. What we're hitting now, where those big numbers are coming from, are these very small boats that the Revolutionary Guard Corps has in and around the strait, and of course around the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman as well. But they have these smaller boats, and so I mean they count. I mean, if you take out one of those boats, you take out one of those boats, you put it on the board, and you count it just like anything else. But I will say that depending on how long this goes, that could be 120, 150. I would expect that in the coming days, we'll see it getting to the hundreds. And depending on how long this goes, we're going to see it getting over 1,000 and maybe into the thousands of small boats, because the Revolutionary Guard Corps has all of these small boats. And that's a big problem that we have in securing the Strait of Hormuz. But as a practical matter, there really isn't any military way to, quote, secure the Strait of Hormuz. It couldn't be done.
The Turkish foreign minister was talking today. He said that Turkey is talking to Iran and the United States about ending the war. Is a third party necessary to get this war finished? And is a third party required to get this thing to the finish line in the same way that we're hearing the U.S. and other countries trying to play a mediator with the Russia-Ukraine war? We've heard of Egypt and Qatar being a third party with the Palestinians and the Israelis. For this conflict between the U.S. and Israel and Iran, is something like that necessary?
Well, it's not absolutely necessary. Could it be helpful? Yes, it could be helpful. And I can see Turkey playing a role. The only issue I really see there is that if you look at the geopolitical dynamics of the Middle East, Turkey and Iran have a lot of differences. And in fact, a great many differences. Now, I will say they do probably agree on one thing, that certainly Turkey doesn't want a Kurdish sovereign territory in its country, and Iran doesn't want a Kurdish sovereign territory in its country. So they might have some dialogue on that level. But you also have to recall that Turkey has been fired upon by Iran. They have been actually the recipient of Iran's wrath in terms of its response to this whole thing. So could they play a role? Potentially. Does it provide another channel for dialogue? Yes. I don't really see this war ending, in the coming days, coming weeks. Very possible. Coming days, no, there's just too much that has to be done.
Japan's leadership was in D.C. today. We were airing it live today, and President Trump, just some hours ago, was participating in a dinner with the Japanese Prime Minister, and we saw him speaking. So one of the points of discussion today was the Strait of Hormuz and the broader security picture amid the war. You and I have talked offline a lot about East Asia's potential gravity amid this conflict. Not direct gravity, but indirect gravity. How is Japan and East Asia in general fitting into the picture, Hal?
Well, they are huge consumers of oil from the Strait of Hormuz. And I want to say in Asia, next to China, probably Japan, they get a huge amount of oil that comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So obviously, they have an enormous vested interest to make sure the strait gets open again, to get that liquefied natural gas, and to get that and to get the oil going again. So they have a national interest beyond whatever President Trump asked them to help with, beyond citing the fact that we got U.S. troops in Japan or anything like that. Japan itself has a very big reason to get the Strait of Hormuz and to get the oil coming down the Persian Gulf faster and sooner rather than later. And the other thing they have, which we have talked about before, is they have minesweepers. And that's something that we're really short of. And they have some outstanding minesweepers. They have an outstanding Navy. And so that's something that they can provide a unique value to. Now, under the Constitution, I think they're still prohibited from sending their self-defense troops overseas into a combat zone. That's one of those quirky things that's left over from we basically wrote their Constitution after World War II, and we wrote it to be somewhat of a pacifist Constitution in that regard. We didn't want them doing anything like they did before, so we wrote it that way. However, and this is kind of what the Prime Minister was sort of indicating, once the combat phase or the heavy combat phase is over, and things have settled down, Japan could be a player in that. And there's other countries in the world that today have kind of said, once the major combat operations have settled down, maybe we could do something. They don't want to get their ships out there where they're going to get hit with any ship torpedoes or run into, or dealing with mini subs or anything like that. But once things have hit a certain point, they might consider doing this. And I think that was kind of a threshold day in that regard, particularly with Japan.
As the U.S. commits resources to the Middle East, is it worth keeping an eye, while we're talking about East Asia, is it worth keeping an eye on Taiwan?
Absolutely. In fact, it's very interesting. The war kicked off, and all of a sudden, China stopped doing its provocative air activity, flying all around Taiwanese airspace, getting into the air defense zone. What they've been doing for a very long time as a routine thing to keep the Taiwanese on edge. Suddenly, they stopped for 10 days. And I will say, everybody I've said, when they talk about this, they go, it was rather mysterious. Nobody knew why they stopped. And then Sunday, they started doing it again. We don't know why they stopped. We don't know why they started again. There was some thought that maybe they're stopping because they're getting ready to do something big, like maybe launch an invasion sooner. However, there is a very large body of thought out there that this idea that by 2027, China would be ready to invade Taiwan. There's a more recent evaluation of that says, no, they may not want to invade Taiwan by then. And we were concerned they might move up that timetable. I think there's a lot of people out there saying they might want to move back that timetable because they've seen the disruption to the global supply chain by what's been happening in the Middle East. And I think it's put them on edge.
Hal Kempfer is a retired Marine intelligence officer and the host of the Strat podcast. You can listen to Strat anywhere podcasts are available. Thanks, Hal.
All right. Thanks, Austin.
You bet.